Heart is what I believe is missing in business. Emotional connection is what people crave. We're about the numbers and we've got financial impacts that we have to measure. So what do you say to those people?
I don't think we've had a client at Hallmark Business Connections in my 10 years with the company that has ever come to us and said, we'd like to spend money with you and engage in business products and services, and we don't care if there's a return on investment. The good news is that investing in relationships has material return on investment. That's what we prove out for our clients.
Hello, Patrick. Welcome to the DoingCXRight show.
Hi, Stacy. Good to be here.
I'm so excited about this conversation, not just because of the connection to doing CX right and all that I talk about, but you're living it and breathing it and teaching it and your products around it. So I'm so thrilled to be here. But before we go into that, please tell the audience, who are you? What do you do for a living?
Like I said, it's an honor to be here. My name is Patrick McCullough. Today, I'm the president of Hallmark Business Connections, which is a subsidiary of Hallmark here in the United States. The Hallmark that you would expect and you've heard of before, right? Greeting cards, Christmas movies, all the above. And it's an honor to be with you, especially on this kind of a podcast, which focuses on an area that's been an important part of my career, customer experience, as well as customer advocacy. And my background is in that space, as well as marketing and advertising, and not to mention my time here at Hallmark. So it's very much close to home.
And from your background, what is a fun fact that many people might not know about you?
Well, it's always a fun question to ask yourself. I think, I'm not from Kansas City, although I do love barbecue. I'm from Texas, the number one or number two barbecue state, depending on one's opinion, I guess. And but I'm from Austin, Texas originally. It's where I was born and raised. And I played a lot of live music growing up and lots of little live bands, things that I'm sure my corporate clients and partners today could hardly imagine. But it was a fun time of my life. And those from Austin, Texas realize that, if you're not in a band or a big fan of a local musician, it's kind of hard to be a true Austinite. So it was a fun part of growing up.
Yeah, I have not been there, but I hear wonderful things. And yes, we could spend an hour just on that topic. But we're talking about customer experience and doing it right. And there's so much related to emotional connection. So let's start there for a minute. When I say doing CX right, what does that even mean to you?
Well, it's a good question. And I think it's one of those things many different professionals certainly could take in lots of different ways. And I was just recently, as an example, at a Gartner conference. It was specifically focused on sales as well as kind of client relationships. But I think if I asked them those questions, the answers I would get back would be about efficiency, and the crowd at that conference would probably talk to me a lot about how AI could make sure that their customer experiences were very, short and to the point, and their customers could get what they want, and non-human experiences and lots of uses of AI. And, I think depending on your perspective and your industry that could be right. But at Hallmark Business Connections and at Hallmark overall, we think of customer experience as being about the personal relationship that we have with our customers and with our clients. That's the critical part for us about doing CX right, is making sure that our fans and our broader Hallmark family know that we care about them and that that's an essential part of the relationship that we build every single day, right, with our many, many millions of fans and customers and clients. And when our team at Hallmark Business Connections thinks about doing CX right, certainly that's where our heart is, right? Is we want to make sure we put our customers first and that they have the kind of relationship experience with our business that they would expect, given that Hallmark is in the name.
All right, you said the key word, heart. I mean, heart is what I believe is missing in business. Emotional connection is what people crave. But oftentimes people said, Stacy, that's too fluffy. That's too vague. We're about the numbers and we've got financial impacts that we have to measure, et cetera, et cetera. So what do you say to those people?
Well, it's an interesting question. And it's fair to say that I don't think we've had a client at Hallmark Business Connections in my 10 years with the company that has ever come to us and said, we'd like to spend money with you and engage in business products and services, And we don't care if there's a return on investment, right? That never happens.
No.
Of course not. They need to have a return on investment. The good news is that investing in relationships has material return on investment. That's what we prove out for our clients all the time. And frankly, it's proven on two wavelengths. It's quantitative return and it's qualitative return. Just one example with a retailer that we've worked with for many, many years. They started doing a custom Hallmark campaign, a greeting card, kind of as a direct mail format. We call this product and service within our business breakthrough. And they used our breakthrough service to communicate with their top 1 million customers to say thank you and to say, here's a gift. If you'd like to come in the store, we'll give you this gift. And we just so appreciate you being a customer. Again, that sounds like heart and fluff, right? We're just sending a thank you note, a Hallmark card. How could that possibly have return on investment? Well, it did. Number one, that redemption of that gift in the store drove incremental sales meaningfully, right? When you're talking about driving 1 million customers back into the store to engage and shop, there's significant quantitative ROI that our customer found there that they reported back to us was meaningfully ahead of any other marketing campaign or acquisition campaign that they run across, no matter the channel, direct mail, digital, etc. But in addition to that, the merchant, our retailer partner, told us that she got hundreds of pieces of mail back from her customers saying thank you, saying, I got your card in the mail. It was so thoughtful for you to say thank you. No one ever does that. And I appreciate it greatly. And just so you know, I went in the store and I shopped and I'll always be a customer of yours. The ability to drive that kind of positive customer engagement and back and forth discussion is so hard these days, right? You can only imagine, right? When you look at a Facebook page or the thread below in a Twitter account as an example, or an X account for a brand, it's almost all negative, right? Those conversations are often always filled with complaints and angry customers. So the idea that you could drive, hundreds of positive engagements and to push your customers to write a thank you note back to me and to our customers at Hallmark, that's ROI, right? That's an incredible qualitative data point that they use all the time to know that they're driving positive interactions that are differentiated. And that's an important thing.
I also, having managed a call center and thousands of customer service agents, I know that that role is monotonous, it's underappreciated, and it's the front line. And yet so many people forget that. And I love that you offer something to companies that allow the agents, empower the agents to be able to express thank you and empower them to do that, which makes them feel good, great. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
I think it's so powerful.
So the technology, thank you. And that technology that you're referencing, that software, we call it CARE, which we thought was a perfect name for that software, right? And it's something that really invokes the point of it, that you're showing care for your employees and for your customers. I'll admit, the idea behind this piece of software that we developed was not ours. We actually stole it. And it's as old as the frontline associate work right back in the day, used to be in this term that we had called clienteling, right? Used to clientele in a retail environment as a customer service environment, and a call center, as you said, that might have looked like people handwriting cards and stamping them and mailing them to customers after they have an interaction, or if it's the customer's birthday or those kinds of things. But what we were hearing from our call center partners, this was more than 10 years ago, 15 years ago, was that they love to do that work, but it was so hard. It was just, operationally so difficult to pull people off the phones and handwrite a card. The follow through was difficult. You ran out of stamps, right? I mean, there's just was so many pieces you had to think about. So we thought we could make that so much easier and enable more businesses to be able to do the thing they want to do anyways, right? Which was follow up with customers and provide that benefit to their employees. And I love that you started there, right, with the benefit for the employees, because that actually was the big finding for us when we launched CARE back in around 2015, was that our initial partner was an electric utility company. What they told us was that, that of course, as we expected, they hear tons of positive feedback from their customers, right? They love the fact that if they happen to have called their utility on their birthday, they get a birthday card in the mail a few days later from the utility, right? Just following up from the person that they had spoken with, which is a wonderful touch point. But the real finding was that the employees of the call center thought it was an incredible tool in their toolkit. This thing that allowed them to have a moment to go above and beyond, literally, tangibly, for their customers, and not just have it be something that's talked about in the call center, but an action that they could take. And they loved that it only took about 30 seconds, right? It did not take them off the phone. They could do it within their wrap time. Oftentimes, reps will be listening for hallmark moments when they're on the phone with someone, and they'll send the card while they're on the phone, right? They'll use our tool to do it before they even get into their wrap time or onto their next call. It's that efficient, but it still makes the difference for these reps to know that they're going above and beyond and they have that tool at their fingertips. And as you'd imagine, there are some employees who are more super users. They send a lot of cards, and there are some who are in the middle and they use it sometimes, and others who are not CX naturals, and that's okay. But we like to think that having this kind of a tool actually helps someone in that curve, right? They become more of a CX natural. They are more able to access that part of their emotional well-being and bring those kinds of actions and behaviors to the forefront, which is so important in that industry. It was an incredible finding for us. Yeah.
Yeah, and what you're talking about is culture. The companies that are adopting bringing the heart to business, the emotional connection, not just emotional intelligence, that's a big turnaround in a company. And I think that more are doing that, but there's still a lot gets in the way. What do you see as the problems that's hindering this? This to me is no duh, but companies are slow to move because of efficiency is where you started.
I think there's a couple different things that I'll touch on two sides of it. One is I'll give you an example of a customer who's doing it really well
Yeah.
and why they're doing it so well. And then maybe we can talk a little bit about the reasons why people don't do it well. But, let me give some kudos to another utility company called Salt River Projects, SRP. If you're in the greater Phoenix area, you've heard of them. They have won, I don't know how many JD Power awards over the years for exemplary customer service. They take it as a badge of honor in their business that they are recognized as one of the best. And if they ever have a year where they don't get one for some reason, that's like the number one strategic imperative the next year is like, we got to make sure that we get back on top. To your point there, that's all about culture. That's all about making decisions as a business that we are going to prioritize our customer experience. We're going to prioritize this function of our business, even if it's seen as a so-called cost center, right? Not a profit center. And so as an example, when we work with Salt River Project, it's a no-brainer for them because they see our tool as helping make sure that culture remains, right? It strengthens that cultural ethos, that customer experience matters. And we see that all the time with our customers, that when you introduce this kind of a tool, it creates sticky culture in the way that you want. Or the phrase that I use at Hallmark Business Connections is specific and intentional culture. Culture can be this thing that develops organically that sometimes can be hard to control or specifically direct, but we do want to have, as a business, intentionality around the cultural ethos that we develop, right, and what we try to drive. And I think it's one of the benefits to it. Now, on the other side, we've tried to work with and have worked with plenty of, let's say banks and insurance companies and others who do not have this at the core of their culture. And what I think it comes down to at the end of the day is different businesses make different choices about what they're going to focus on. No business can focus on everything. Some businesses try and decide to compete on a differentiated customer experience, and that then becomes a part of the cultural ethos over time if they're successful. Other companies decide to, focus on price as a strategy, right? Or maybe they focus on product differentiation, right? There's any number of different things. And when they do that, they have to make trade-offs, right, at the end of the day. And sometimes customer experience becomes the trade-off. It's the nature of business, right? We all have to make these trade-offs. We all have to decide how we're going to position ourselves. What I just would tell you is that at the end of the day, having seen this landscape really broadly and have a lot of data from our customers who exist in a lot of these different spaces, the businesses that are focusing on driving a unique customer experience are the ones that are having consistent long-term success. And those businesses that are not, and they're choosing to prioritize other types of strategic focuses, pricing as an example, they may have short-term wins, or they may make the quarter more consistently for if you're publicly traded. But over the long term, they tend to find themselves in greater difficulty. And they tend to be fighting more uphill battles. And there's lots of factors. So I'm not saying that customer experience is the only reason why that is, but we've just seen that thread pretty consistent these days. And so it's honestly not too hard when we go in and sell our products and solutions within companies because they see it too. They also realize that differentiating on customer experience from a competitive perspective is pretty essential these days.
So I believe and just put out a blog article today and on LinkedIn about the concept of satisfaction score. I believe that is old, it's not enough, it's mediocre, it's average. And so I'm challenging the world to actually stop measuring mediocre. And if they adopt that and they believe and they agree that, yeah, customers want not average, they want above and beyond because there's so many choices, that if they do believe in this, then they're going to want that extra emotional touch, that human touch that we're talking about. But it's going to require companies changing the way they actually measure. What is your view on that?
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree. CSAT, ESAT, right? All of the SATs are legacy metrics. I think that is fair to say. They are metrics that businesses use as benchmarking tools. And so they may still have a modest amount of utility, right, for businesses as a starting place. Where I would certainly agree is that if you think that only measuring CSAT and getting back a CSAT that looks like it's roughly comparable to your competitors checks the box, and you no longer need to do any more measurement or have any further relationship with your customers, I think you're missing the point. We have a customer who they do, of course, track CSAT, but they also do multifunctional surveys that asks questions that are not just, do you like our products and services, but also things like, the last time you had an interaction with one of our associates, was it memorable? Was it positive? Was it a warm interaction? Did you feel like they were interested in speaking with you, right? All of these kinds of more in-depth questions that try to get to the depth of the relationship and the quality of the relationship that company had with their customers. That data is hard to get, right? It's hard to get people to give survey feedback. It's hard to get the types of quality and depth across the survey base that you want to get. And so it takes time and it takes money and focus for businesses to do it. But the ROI they get from that survey is knowing not just that their CSAT might be, X, Y, Z number, but knowing more specifically where they're succeeding and failing in the relationship that they have with their customers. And it allows them to make strategic choices about where they need to invest over the long run versus just presuming they might be good or not good on the basis of one metric. And I think most companies, by the way, would agree with this sentiment, right? As I said earlier, it comes down to trade-offs. Where are you going to place your investments? And, there's significant ROI on making sure you get this question right.
Yes. And before I close out on that point, I just think about if a friend said to me, I just went to the restaurant and it was satisfactory. I'd be like, I don't know that I would go there. And it just makes right? It just makes me laugh of how much satisfaction is just used. And I'm just challenging the world to rethink that. But going back to the emotional connection that I don't think satisfactory solicits enough, and that is that there's a real customer journey. How a customer learns, buys, use, pay, get help. And so there's these micro moments in the journey, and customers are having a journey whether you design for it or not, so you might as well design for it. Do you find that people are sending cards and that emotional connection within each of the journey stages, or is there one that stands out more than another? What's your perspective?
That's a great question, and it really depends on the business and their strategy. So when we sit down with a newer customer, especially, one of the first things that we'll do is kind of look at a touch point map across both business touch points and life touch points. And we always have to remind our customers that both matter. If you're going to be a part of your customer's life, their life moments matter. And we think about, okay, let's take this touch point strategy or touch point map, and then let's overlay your business strategy, because no business focuses on the entire strategy all at once at all times. It'd be spread too thin from a strategic perspective. But once you do that overlay, then we can start making decisions about, okay, now we need to make these investments here, right? So as an example, we just recently were talking with an insurance customer, a property casualty insurer, and they were telling us about where their focus is going to be and how their product set is changing, how they're going to have some significant potential impacts with the way their agents interact with their customers and even the agent base itself. And that strategy overlaid on a touch point map indicates for us that we need to focus, as an example, on customer retention. Then we need to make sure when policy renewal comes up that we're taking multiple steps to help rebuild that relationship. because there could be some friction. And so we're going to place those investments there in the upcoming year and maybe take them away from other areas. And that's what's most important. I think that focus for us is what matters. We know it at Hallmark Business Connections, the products and services that we have are not an end all be all, right? We are not someone would never hire us as their agency of record, as an example, to do all of their marketing and communication. There are things that you should not send in a Hallmark card. You should not send a bill in a Hallmark card. You should not send a renewal notice in a Hallmark card. That doesn't make sense. But there are plenty of things that do, and we are that tool in the toolkit. And like I said, we simply try to do our best to overlay that touch point map with the underlying business strategy on an ongoing basis. Because of course, as we also know, these business strategies change, and you've got to be nimble to the marketplace. But we find it works. Most of our businesses understand that tool in a toolbox function, and there's no question about it.
Well, you said something that actually does stand out to me, and that is the power of sorry. When you make a mistake, a company makes a mistake, when they're forthright and transparent, then if it is a finance bill, right, with the sorry, or here's a token of something, that can be super powerful. So there's a lot of use cases.
There are, yeah. Sorry is the hardest one, right? Because a business saying sorry, you'd think, well, yeah, of course. Like, if I mess up, I'd want to say sorry for that. But so many businesses, legal and risk, get in the room and they say, well, we don't want to apologize because, right, does that mean that we're taking ownership? Does that mean we're admitting fault? Does that open us up to liability? That is really, truly the hardest one that our customers have, is saying sorry, surprising or not, right? That would be the case. But what we have found is that there can be some nuance there. So if you have a failure to do quality service delivery, right, with a customer, they expected you at a retail store, as an example, to have a certain level of quality, and you didn't meet that expectation. Sometimes it's just as simple as that, right? You're not admitting that you didn't meet or you didn't meet a specific promise, or that you didn't abide by your terms and service, but you're just saying, we know that you expected more of us, and that at the end of the day, we didn't meet that expectation. And we just want we want to acknowledge that and let you know that we're going to try to do better next time. I know I just said a lot of words that sound like they were lawyered, but we have found over the years that even those little nuances can work with customers, right? That acknowledgement is more than half of the apology, right? At the end of the day, it may not be 100% of it, but it's more than half. And so it does make a difference. And usually the lawyers will put their signature on it, and everyone feels good about it. And yeah, it is a powerful touch point when you can make it happen.
Yes. And I want people to remember that people are more forgiving when you do make a mistake and you're forthright about that. So that's another hour we could spend. As we're coming to the end, I want to ask you a few last questions, which is, where are we going? What's your prediction in this AI world where we're both saying you need that emotional connection too? Any predictions on the business and forecasts of what's happening, what we need to plan for?
Sure. Well, I don't know if any predictions, if only because the world is moving so fast. Any predictions are old, I feel like, 5 minutes after you say them. But I'll tell you what we're hearing from our customers, which is that they see certainly that we're heading into the agent age, if you will, the age of agents, where we're all going to have AI agents around us in our personal lives as well as our business lives, helping us be more efficient, taking care of tasks that before were tedious and making them much simpler to accomplish. And that's going to allow us to focus on other areas of the business. And what I'm hopeful for is that within, as an example, the call center experience, that's going to take care of a lot of tasks that will come off of our representatives, our reps' plates, and then allow them to be more focused on building human connection. As an example, those of us who've ever used CIS and CRM systems know that no matter how beautiful the software might look, they're still fairly thick, and there's a lot of friction in trying to work through it, even a good CIS and CRM system. If our AI agents make us even more efficient in that regard, that gives more time to do the kind of clienteling that I mentioned earlier, right? And to make sure that we're doing the right kind of follow-ups that are going to build better relationships with our customers. It's funny when we talk with our customers about the future of AI and all the different things and the places that it could fit in our business, as well as we build AI into Hallmark Business Connections, which we do every single day. This kind of belief set, I think, is core to everything that we're doing and what we're hearing in the marketplace, which is that it's going to be an enabler of all of the best kinds of things.
Yeah.
And it's going to help us get rid of the things that we really don't want to be spending time on anymore. I'm sure there will be more friction than I might be illustrating in that, kind of nirvana state of where I could go. But for now, by and large, that's the path that we're seeing. And that's exciting for us, right? Because we want to spend more time doing the right things. We want to spend more time building relationships and enabling relationships and allowing our customers, or allowing our employees to do the things that we ask them to do. And I think if that vision comes true, it's going to be a wonderful kind of golden age for us in this.
Do the right things, doing CX right. You see the connection?
Of course.
And leadership advice, what's the best advice you've been given or received?
Well, I mean, that's a long list because I've had a wonderful group of mentors over the years who've been wonderful partners to me, of course. But, from a leadership perspective, especially in the customer experience space, I think the best advice I've ever gotten is to make sure that you take time to build the correct foundation for your future customer experience models. It's, I think, easy for us to try to go fast in the customer experience space, especially, right? And to try to get through the call queue. Let's stand up more reps, right? How long is the training program, Mike? Is it a week? Is it 2 weeks? Maybe could we make it faster? And the truth is the better you build your foundation, the more time that you take for your foundation, the better the results are going to be at the end of the day. And that is consistently played out time and time again. And listen, I know that most of your listeners here are thinking, well, it's easy to say on this podcast, but harder when your boss is telling you to move faster and cut your budgets and, be more efficient. I acknowledge that completely. But I think that the truth from a leadership perspective is that we need to find ways to enable this, enable the right way to do things for our employees, especially. And if that means that we need to find other ways to be efficient so that we can enable the right behavior, so be it, right? And we try as best we can at Hallmark Business Connections to find this balance.
Mm-hmm.
We need to be efficient, of course. We need to run a strong business, but we also know that there are right ways to do things. There are investments that we can make that are going to pay dividends in the long run, and there are investments that are worth making. And we try to keep that front of mind as best we can.
The one takeaway you want people to remember as they are in their business dealing with their challenges, what's that one go do?
I think for me, it's that they need to go out and specifically go find the tools, the products, the services to help them build better relationships. So many businesses we talk to today want to do it, but they don't have the tools. And then we ask them, like, well, what kind of tools are you looking at? And like, what kind of conferences have you gone to? Who have you talked to? And there's no action there, right? It's just a desire, but without that with fulfilled intent. So my advice would be to go out and start doing the homework, do the legwork, right? Find your business partners that are going to be there to help you fulfill that mission. And the reason I say that is because the sooner you start, the sooner you're going to get the positive feedback, that ROI that I mentioned to you at the beginning, quantitative and qualitative, which is going to give you the fuel to continue, right? To keep going down this journey. The sooner you start, the sooner you'll get there.
And my last question's about you. My favorite question. If you could go back in time to your younger 20-year-old self, based on what you know now, Patrick, what would you tell the younger you?
So many things. But I think the number one thing would be to be patient, to understand that there's so many wonderful things that'll come with life along the journey, and that you don't always have to go minute by minute trying to get to whatever the next thing is supposed to be. That life is and has always been a wonderful journey, and that it's not about the destination, of course. It's just about the journey, and you should enjoy it along the way.
Yes, and send more cards.
Of course.
Who doesn't love receiving a handwritten card, a personalized card, which is just so beautiful? Well, thank you so much for being on my show. And I will have in the show notes ways that people can learn more about you and Hallmark Business and all the different solutions you provide to create that emotional connection. And listen, everybody, there is ROI to emotional connection. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Stacy.